So this will be Merpay QA Dev Dojo. And from the Merpay QA teams, we will be presenting this session. So let us start from the quick self-introduction. I'm Masatoshi Sato. In Merpay QA team, currently I am in charge of QA for partner platform team. Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Yasuhiro Kawasaki. My Slack name is Yasuhiro. Nice to meet you all. At Merpay, I'm working as a QA engineer and I'm looking at credit. So in terms of the microservice, credit info, credit line, and sometimes also credit score, those are the domains that I mainly conduct QA. So thank you for joining this session today. Now here's the agenda for this session. And let's go straight into the topic. I would like to take a moment for everybody to think about what QA means. QA stands for Quality Assurance. Now, next, let's think about the word quality that makes up quality, the word quality assurance. If you ask this question to the QA engineers, they will often come back saying quality is value to somebody, because this is the phrase that a lot of the QA engineers have heard. So this is a very well-known quote in the QA, in the world of QA. So again, quality is value. So depending on the situations and also the values, the required quality can vary. At Merpay, we have multiple different products, and the quality required for each product can be different. And even if it's the same product, in the initial release and also in the operational phase, depending on each phase, the required quality can also be different. For example, for the initial release, if we want to prioritize releasing fast to get some reactions from the users, we may have a little bit lower standard. But when it comes to the operational phase, we already have a certain user base of that product. So we aim to deliver a product that has a higher quality. So again, depending on various conditions, situations, the required quality can vary. So how to ensure such quality and assure that will be the basic concept of quality assurance. Now, I would also like to give you some specific examples of QA. Before release, we will be actually using the app to test, and that is also an important example of quality assurance, but actually there are more than that. So let me share. So first of all is the establishment of quality standards. So again, depending on the products, also on the phases, the required quality is different. But having said that, it's still important for us to set a certain level of standards of quality, because depending on the teams, if we have different quality, then as a Merpay product as a whole, you may not be able to satisfy the quality. Next will be the standardization of documents. In the various phases of development, I think you will set up some document specs or the design docs, and there are some test cases that are usually created by QAs. So having all of these formats for documents being standardized will be able to ensure consistency and be able to avoid missing out basic information that's required. So having the documents unified to a certain extent, it also helps a smoother communication within the organization, and that eventually leads up to the efficiency of the overall work. And third would be the development process optimization. In each process, we want to clarify what is the actual work required, so that in each process we can actually enhance the quality, and overall we will eventually be able to increase and enhance the quality as a product. To be more specific, if it's a project that requires some compliance with laws and regulations, then we will actually invite the legal team to give us a review in the process. So that will also be one example of development of a optimization of the development process. So far I've been explaining a lot about what quality assurance is, but next I would like to talk about why QA is necessary. So if we actually release a product without having appropriate quality assurance, we will increase the risk of the incidents to occur, and that can follow to the next risks, which is such as the decline in the reliability, cause of additional cost, and also entailing some legal risk. So let's look at the each element in greater detail. First of all, the decrease of reliability. So after the release, if we see frequent incidents occurring, then we will going to harm the trust and reliability towards our product and service, and that will end up losing the trust from the market and our customers. So Melpay provides payment or the settlement service. So when the customer tries to use it, if the payment doesn't work, and although this is totally unacceptable, but if the payment is done at a wrong amount, then the customer will not going to use Melpay anymore. So we can see such churn and flight of customers, and also we will damage the customer satisfaction and also the company's brand, and ultimately that will lead up to a negative impact on the company's growth and also revenue. Next will be about the additional cost. Naturally, if an incident occurs, we will have to respond to that and spend our time and effort on the restoration, and that would also cause some additional cost. Next will be about the legal risk. If there is any incident that violates the applicable laws and regulations, then there is a chance that we will be sued by our customers or receive an administrative disciplinary actions by the regulators. And ultimately, in the worst case, this can lead up to a business suspension. So yes, MailPay is in providing financial services. So yes, there are a lot of legal requirements. So, for example, like a lending business act and installment sales act and such, all of those relevant applicable laws will become very important for us to ensure our quality. So again, in order to prevent from legal risk to occur, we tend to embed the legal review in the overall development process. So again, to prevent all of these issues to occur, QA is deemed to be highly critical. Now, next, I would also like to introduce how we carry out the QA process here at MailPay, and I would like to hand the mic over to Yasuhiro. So Yasuhiro will be explaining from this part. So let's start from the process overview. If you look at the top, the development process is broken down to 4 steps. One is the phase to consider the specs. Next is the development design and implementation by the engineers, and next testing and followed by the operation. So there are basically 4 steps, and QA engineers actually get involved in each phase. Sometimes people tend to think that QA engineers only come into play during the test phase, but actually, please remember that QA engineers are involved in all of these steps in the development process. Now, before the test phase, so in the upper stream of the process, for example, spec consideration and getting ourselves involved from this stage, from early in the process, we'll be able to start working towards ensuring the quality. Let me give you some examples what I mean by this. For example, in the spec consideration phase, what QA engineer does, we will review the specs. And based upon the specs, the QA engineers will plan the testing. And when it comes to the development design and the implementation phase, for the design that will be implemented, the QA will decide the more specific tests to be conducted. And in the testing phase, the QA engineers will execute the test cases that were designed and to check any bugs or misbehavior of the performance. And in the operation phase after the release, we will check in the production environment and make sure the product and service behavior is fine and causing no issues. And after the product is released, it's not that all our work is done. There are some additional feature to be released or any fixes to be made. So we will conduct the additional tests such as regression tests. So as I said, in all phases, the QA engineers are involved. So that's the most important takeaway from this slide.
Next, we'll go into a bit more each phase, what we actually do in each step. First, phase one of considering the specs. This is led by the PMs, the phase where we actually make the specs. In terms of what QA does in this stage, as I was saying before, we'll review the specs and plan the tests. We'll take part in the spec review sessions, and more specifically, what we do is think from the QA engineer perspective if there's any sort of things that have been overlooked. And we'll also think about if there'll be any impact on other systems or microservices. Basically, point out any things that come to our attention while collaboratively actually putting together the specs. So basically, we work to increase the quality of the specs. One other plan part here is planning the tests. So we'll look at the specs and think about the scope for actually conducting tests. And we'll also decide the plan for testing and write out all the potential risks, as well as the schedule up until the release. The test plan isn't just made and left to be done with. Rather, it's something that has to all be agreed upon among the team. This part is really crucial. We need to understand as a team how are we going to work to maintain quality. This part really is incredibly crucial. Next, we begin development design and the actual implementation. As I said before, in this phase, the engineers will look at the specs and think about how they will actually implement. In addition to that, they'll actually begin the implementation. So, in this phase, the QA engineers will look at the test cases and take part in the review sessions led by the engineers regarding development. Before beginning the actual tests, we'll also do very simple performance readiness checks to confirm everything's all functioning well. Let's look a bit more at the test design. I think this might be the first time hearing about this to some people. So you might be wondering, what does it really entail? Basically, we look at the testing plan and think about where are we going to actually begin testing. We also will write out the actual steps and our general expectations for the test. So write out the actual test cases. The test cases we put together here aren't discussed just within QA, but rather it's something that the whole team discusses. So including the engineers, PMs, designers, really everybody all together will conduct a review. We make sure there are no errors in the test cases, nothing that's been left out. In addition to these very obvious areas, we look at the test design and implementation and think about any patterns that might have been overlooked or any use cases that may have not come to mind yet. So, trying to pick up on these things in advance of actually running the tests is the whole intention here. I think this will make more sense as I go through the remaining steps. But let's say rather than a bug coming up in the actual later environments, it's better to pick up on this in the testing stages rather than in the production environment, for example. So it's the risk or the time it takes to handle something is lower the earlier in the process we pick up on it, any emissions or any potential bugs. We also look at automated testing and get the code ready to implement them. And next, we have the testing phase, which is pretty simple. Basically, we execute the actual tests and look at any bugs that come up. It's not that we're just doing testing here, but also we have to manage any bugs that come up and also analyze them. So as you see here, we need to visualize the bugs, analyze the trends, and decide a priority for fixing any things that come up. Dog fooding, for example, we also do that involves wider range of people. This essentially refers to before the release, we want to ensure the quality of the product or the feature and the UX as well. To do so, we don't want to only discuss among those involved in development, but also bring in other employees. So we'll look at the feature, and if there are no issues at all, we finally move forward with the release. Last operation phase. So this is for after the release. It does depend on the specific feature, but we'll do a check in production environment. For example, actually conduct a transaction as just an example to make sure that there are no issues. And as I mentioned before, it's not that we just release and then there's nothing left to do. Rather, we need to look at if there are any additional features that need to be implemented. And to do so, that will require additional testing. Also, regression testing we do to make sure there are no issues after the release. It's just another example. There's also automated testing and the maintenance of these tests, and also work to improve on any issues that come up through the release of the tests. So far, we've gone over a high level overview of the QA process, but while, yes, very broadly speaking, this is pretty consistent across teams, at the same time, there is a bit of variation looking at each team individually. So if you have any questions about specific parts of the phase, I would recommend asking the QA engineer assigned to your team. I'm sure they will walk you through whatever your questions may be. As I've said many times throughout the presentation, QA engineers are really involved in every single step of the process. That means the kickoff stage of a project and also jumping in to help with any questions you might have about where to test. So, yes, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So, that's everything for the QA process. The next section will be the last part, so that QA is for everybody, something that we all have to take responsibility for. Is QA something only the QA team and QA engineers should remain aware of? I think, yes, as everybody already knows, no, that's not the case. So, yes, here I'll show you the answer. QA is not something that just the QA team should focus on, but something that we all need to maintain awareness of. Really, everybody involved in the product. To provide a high quality product, it's crucial that we all maintain aware of quality and continue to work to increase it. So yes, QA is really for everyone. I'll share a couple more examples of what that specifically looks like. So I have just three here to share. I think there are probably many more examples. The first is implementing and promoting automated tests. Some might think this is really just for QA members, but in Merpay, even front end and back end engineers will work together on these automated tests. This includes things like installing and operating Scenario Go. Second is improving QA efficiency or looking into ways to do so. To really effectively continue to improve quality, it's important to either create tools that will make it easier to do so and keep thinking about them. So this link here is just in Japanese, but there's a very interesting example that I included on the slide using Go for SQL query tests, just as an example. Last, having retrospectives for incidents. When an incident occurs, let's say it was an individual that might have created a bug, rather than just one person working on it, it's crucial for the whole team to come together to think about prevention measures. Yes, so those are just a few examples of QA being for everyone. There are many other examples of how we try to promote this mindset. So, yes, definitely take some time to think about it within your team. Now, to summarize the presentation today, so please remember these three things. I think that'll be the main takeaways for today. First, QA, I think, might have been a fairly new term for some people today. So please just first remember what it really refers to. Quality assurance, so assuring and verifying quality. And if we don't have adequate QA in place, this can result in all different kinds of risks. Let's say, for example, if quality isn't assured before the product is actually released. And third, quality assurance is something that we all need to keep in mind to work together to create the very best products. So, again, these are the three big takeaways I hope you will remember from today. And yes, I think that's the whole presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, everybody.